Okay, it says it's going live. It says it's going live. Are we live?
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, there we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Mega Sugianto. I'm one of the co-chairs, along with Stephen. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Stephen Jeewanmal. I'm a reporter with WTXL Television in Tallahassee, and I am
And
the co-chair.
and I'm here in Chico, California. We're all over the place, including our guest, Rahul Bali, who's a reporter as well as an editor at WTOP in Washington, D.C. Rahul, you have a really cool and interesting story where you were back in WTOP in 2010 where you followed your wife through Georgia. And we met like 4 years ago, and you have this incredible story of, health and well-being.
Well, and first of all, I want to say hi to everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. I want to make first clear on all of these topics. I am not an expert when it comes to health, mental health, relationships, finances. I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who's made a lot of mistakes over the years, and these are mistakes that I'm willing to talk about, and I want to talk about if anything more than people can avoid making some of those mistakes that you can make doing this. I have been in this wonderful business now for 20 years. This past June marked 20 years since I went to Huntsville, Alabama, and WVNN in Huntsville, Alabama, which is the station's actually located 40 minutes away in Athens, Alabama. Very, very, very small city. And Mega was talking about. Mega met me. And most people who know me have known that I've had all sorts of challenges, one of them being my weight. At one point in my life, I was 315 pounds, and I've used different ways to get my weight down, and we can talk about that, including a little more than a year ago, I did weight loss surgery. I mean, it was a pretty drastic step, but a step that I felt like that I had to take. And if I had done things differently, maybe I avoid having that surgery. I'm lucky the surgery went very well, but sometimes, any surgery can go wrong. And obviously, as Mega mentioned, I'm happily married. Already past 9 years. Next year will be 10 years of marriage. Um, and with any healthy marriage, I don't say great or good marriage. With any healthy marriage, there is duct tape on that marriage. There is Bondo on that marriage. There are good spots and bad spots that if my wife came down here right now, she's actually upstairs giving the kids a bath. We just got back from the daycare has its own holiday party. Go figure. We've made lots of mistakes. We're still making mistakes. We've made multiple mistakes this year alone. So.
Right.
But I am happily married, and my wife is in the U.S. Army. Very proud of her. And so I follow her career because, of course, the Army has their needs, and I just follow her. I was here at WTOP in Washington, D.C. once before. I actually would never have applied to WTOP the first time if I didn't follow my wife here the first time when she came up here for med school. So, an opportunity appeared because I was married to her. On the flip side, then we left for Fort Gordon, Georgia, and so other opportunities popped up for me. And now we're back in D.C. because the Army decided to bring us back, and of course, we may get a phone call again that the Army's moving us again. So, it's and obviously we can talk about relationships and all the challenges that come with it. Again, if anybody can take anything from this, little tidbits of advice, I'm not going to offer anything massive. I'm not going to say, you've got to overhaul your lives because this business is difficult. It is long days, long hours. And for those of you in small markets, understand because I followed my wife to Augusta, Georgia, I was actually in a small market just a few years ago. From 2010 to 2011, I was at the ABC affiliate in Augusta, Georgia, and it was a good reminder and refresher of what it's like to be in market 114 after I had been at CNN, had been WSB in Atlanta, and WTOP in Washington, D.C. It was interesting to go back to a small market there, luckily I'm married to a doctor and she gets paid well, but the amount of money I was making in Augusta was just, for those of you out there, I just went through this, 4 or 5 years ago, and just to remember how little you get paid sometimes in these smaller markets.
I think it's I mean, what you mentioned is like life is not necessarily what you kind of plan it out to be. It looks like you're kind of still trying to figure out where to go as far as your future is concerned, but right now it seems very stable. But I'm curious to know kind of like the events that led up to you being 300 pounds, because like what we had talked about, that's not necessarily where you wanted to be at by far.
Let's start in college. I started at Georgia Tech in 1994. All of you have heard of the freshman 15. I did the freshman 45. I put on 45 pounds in my first year at Georgia Tech. I went from eating homemade Indian food at my mom's house to, in the morning, I ate at Junior's Grill. For those of you at Georgia Tech know, it's like I ate French toast and eggs. For lunch, it was the taco salad, and then pizza, and pizza for like the last 3 meals of the day. And it was just, that's how it started. I went from 202 to 246 just in my first year, and I kept putting on weight. Somewhere in 2000, 2002, I hit 315 pounds. I'm only 5'11". That's a lot of weight for a person my size. And it just kind of happened. You eat badly. One of the stations I worked at, WSB, they have this table. It's nicknamed the trough. The sales department would have a meal, and whatever was left over, it would appear at this trough. If there was some programming lunch, and food would appear there 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, just randomly. One of my coworkers, who was like the desk closest to the trough, realized she was putting on weight because where she sat. I'll tell you this one quick story. So when I did hit 315 pounds, I was a miserable. I'm a miserable human being. I could start cursing away. And the first thing I did is I went to seek help, and I went to a nutritionist. And so here's my first tip for those people who are kind of out there. Write a food journal. Like, take a sheet of paper and write down everything you eat. You know what? There are some great apps out there right now. I use an app called MyFitnessPal.
Yes.
There are great calorie counting apps. And so get ready for this. This is what will blow your mind. Is when I wrote down, I was eating, and I'm getting feedback from somebody, by the way. I was drinking 6 to 8 cans of regular Coke a day. That was 1,600 calories before I had anything to eat. That's how much Coke, regular Coke, I was drinking a day. That's how you get to 315 pounds. So my first tip is just write down everything you eat, or use one of these apps. By the way, these apps, if you've never used one, are amazing. MyFitnessPal has like homemade Indian foods, because it's a crowdsourced app. It eventually builds up all these foods, different restaurants. Get this sandwich without meat, or this sandwich without cheese, or it's a great app. And just write down everything you eat, and you will find out things. Now, when I did get that nutritionist, I was able to go from about 315 pounds, eventually over about 7-8 years, down to 250 pounds, 245 pounds, through different things. First of all, I quit whole milk. I quit white sugar. And that takes a while. You can't do that overnight. I went from whole milk to 2% to 1%. I went from regular calorie Coke to Diet Coke. That all takes a while. If you try to do it overnight, it's a real shock to the system. Quitting white sugar took a while. I went from white sugar to brown sugar to agave, just different things. And so that takes a while to do those transitions. And there were medications involved. I used, at one point, phentermine, which is a very strong stimulant to help lose weight. It really didn't work for me. I used Xenical, has some horrible side effects, but it helped me lose weight. And eventually, I got down to these 250s. I married my wife, and then I started floating back up again. And then the diabetes kicked in. I got a diagnosis of diabetes, And it's like, okay, we're going back down the hill again. And that's when a year ago I decided to have weight loss surgery. And now understand, I decided weight loss surgery before that, and then I couldn't go through with it. This time I did go through with it, and it was the right thing for me. There
Why?
are a lot of,
What happened there? I mean, as far as, I mean, that's a big decision, I know, but what
it was
specifically?
to be very honest with you, I had a lot. I mean, I love the weight loss with it, but in my case, I saw the diabetes, and I realized if I can't get this under control, I was on different medications, and I realized this is just not working. And doing the surgery was the smartest thing to do. That worked for me. So again, I've tried it all, whether it was exercise, whether it's, changing the food and using a nutritionist, different medications. In the end, in my case, it's all about the food. Okay? It didn't matter. I mean, I had some of the most rigorous exercise routines. I even learned how to swim so I could exercise more. And it wasn't helping. In my case, it was all about the food. In your case, it may be something different. So
Right. How
it,
about mental health? I mean, I know me personally, I've kind of dealt with the same thing when I went to my small market. I don't know about you, Stephen, but all I ate was bean cuisines for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My coworkers, my former coworkers, could vouch for that. And my health was going downhill very quickly. I mean, not to that point, but my cholesterol was high, diabetes was kind of in the picture. But also my mental health, I was like going through like a lot of anxiety. I mean, did you have what were your ways to kind of go against that or battle that or whatever it may be?
I think starting with college, food was my out. I used food as my out. That's, Georgia Tech is a very, very difficult college. I did not graduate from there. And because I did, at that point, I wasn't drinking alcohol. I did not drink when I was in most of my college years. Food became my out. That's how I dealt with my anxiety, and that's why I put on the weight. All the mental stresses, for a good chunk of the beginning of my career, my family was not supportive of my career. I left engineering school. I did eventually get a business degree from Georgia State University, and they were like, well, you have an economics degree. You can make more money. When you tell family members what you're making in Huntsville, Alabama, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I made minimum wage 20 years ago in Huntsville, Alabama. And for those of you who don't know, minimum wage in 1994 was $4.15 an hour. And so that's what I made at my first job as a board op in Huntsville, Alabama. My first 4 years of my career, I had a second job. Sometimes I answered phones at a police department. I worked in a computer lab at DeKalb College. I did all sorts of second jobs because full-time radio wasn't paying the bills. And so I had to have a second job. And all of this to come to the point of there's going to be a lot of times you question yourself, is this worth it? Because you are generally in a market, at least in Augusta, Georgia, where I just was, my wife was living there. But when you live alone, you have no one really to call. No one lives in the city that you know. It's rough, and you try to lean on your coworkers. You try to lean on your family if they support you. And as I said, I had years where my family was like, well, if it's so depressing and you don't enjoy it, why don't you use your business degree? It's difficult. Now, of course, my family fully supports. I think they fully supported when I got to CNN. They're like, ooh, you're at CNN. But
Funny.
it's tough, and so you try to lean on coworkers. You try to find family members who will listen to you. The nice thing is, and one of the disadvantages that I had, and it was by my own fault, was I wasn't part of AHA. I didn't join and really get involved in AHA until I was about 4 or 5 years into my career. Who knows how things would have turned out, better or worse, if I had a system to lean on. You guys have people to lean on now. You're in Chico, California. Before that, you were in Nebraska. I can't imagine what it's like in Nebraska. And we all have something in common. I remember, I don't know if she's on the chat tonight, but Trang Do, who's now in Baltimore. I remember when I met her in Chicago, 2008 convention. She was in my old market, Huntsville. I love talking to people who've gone to markets that I've worked in. So she was in Huntsville. It was very exciting to talk to someone, um, who had how things had changed in that market. So you look for a support network, whether it's within your family, within your work family. It's very difficult to make friends in small markets. It just is. I didn't make a ton of. I mean, I have no friends left from when I was in Huntsville radio. I have no friends left from my first. No, I have one friend left from my first station in Atlanta. My second station I was at for 10 years, so I had a lot of friends that I kept from there. Um, and then in Huntsville, in Augusta, even though that was just a few years ago, I've probably kept just a handful of friends from there too. So,
Right.
um, and looking ahead, next week is Christmas. By the way, Meg, are you working next week?
Oh yeah, I'm the newbie.
Steve, you working?
You betcha.
So everyone's
And
working.
now I am by choice, but I'm working next week during Christmas. Christmas week I'm not working Christmas Eve, but I'm working Christmas night. And so, it's that's difficult because your family is elsewhere, and I remember the questions of, okay, it's Christmas and you're working. I mean, we don't shut off the TV station, we don't shut off the radio station. Things, major stories happen. I want to say the major tsunami the major tsunami happened like the day after Christmas, if I remember right. Um, People wonder why we work on weekends. When I worked at WSB, around Atlanta, we had this amazing billboard about all the major stories that happened on weekends and why you should listen to our station. Like Saddam was captured on a Saturday. Um, it's you realize that they're trying to put the words to it. It's hard when you tell people that oh, I can't hang out tonight. I'm working. And it's hard on relationships too, and something we
Right.
can get into.
And if you don't mind, can I show you I'm going to play some of the photos of your profile picture on Facebook. Is that okay?
Sure, please.
Yeah, no, and okay, so the first tip you say keep a log of your food intake because that's important. Obviously, sometimes when you're kind of going about your day and just going to cruising through life, it's kind of difficult to keep track of how many sodas or sugar or how much of that kind of stuff you're taking, right? And then the second one that you'd mentioned was a support network, and yeah, I mean, in the small markets, that's really difficult because sometimes you kind of feel out of place. And how about like mental health? I mean, did you particularly go to like a therapist or something that you might recommend to other people who are kind of afraid to take that step, I guess?
The challenge with the therapist is it would be the money, unless it's covered by the health insurance at your company. One of the key things, by the way, talking about weight, in that picture right there, I'm probably close to 280, 290. I'm 220 now.
220? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm about 220 now. And trust me, going to Machu Picchu at 14,000 feet, not easy when you're 270 pounds. There's a million things, a million tips I can give to people, but when you realize how little money we have when we work in small markets, that we're just trying to make the rent, we're just trying to pay for groceries, it's hard for me to say, hey, you need to do 10 million things. If your health insurance can get you a therapist and it's minimal cost or no cost, then you access it. But I do have to say, one of the things that's out there is, and I want to mention my company, WTOP, owned by Hubbard Radio. They have access to resources through the company, including a hotline to find services, psychological services, because as reporters, we see some, pretty horrible things. I've covered, mass family suicides. I've covered a funeral for a family of 7, and in this very moment, I'm thinking about, there were 6 full-size coffin and then 1 itty-bitty coffin, and you knew who that was for. It was for a tiny child. Within your company, some companies do have resources, have great resources that they have access to. And Hubbard Radio does. It's basically a phone number you can call to get help. if you have, first of all, the time and you have the coverage, maybe you get it through your company. Then again, you can. There's always coworkers to lean on. You know, the reason coworkers are great is A, they're easy to get access to because you're around them, or if there's a family member or friend you can reach out to, or you find somebody who's in the business longer. I do talk to people about some of the things that they're going through. So, anybody who's there are ears out there to listen to. Getting professional help, if you can access professional help, that's always best. But whether it's money or time, that's not always easy. And if money or time are the issues, then you look elsewhere, whether it's people within Asian American journalists, people within your own newsroom, or people within your family.
I agree. And it's funny that you mentioned, the things that we were talking about in one of the other, what's it called? The other Google Hangouts, where, we do see a lot of things that affect us. I mean, in particular today was just so difficult for me when I saw some dash cam video of this rollover accident, and then just saw someone pretty much dying, and it just something very difficult to kind of grasp. And I do appreciate you saying that, reach out to people, because sometimes I do feel like, wow, I'm alone, and that's not true.
Yeah, and please do. Like I said, number one, if you can seek professional help, do it. But obviously, there are financial issues to think about, time issues, because for God's sake, we have morning meeting at 9 o'clock, and then we're on at 5, 6, and 7 with shows. I mean, when are you going to have time? Now, yes, there are therapists who are available that time, but again, there are people here at AJA. There are people within your circle that you can reach out to. You'd be surprised. A lot of your friends will listen to you, because some of them just don't realize some of the crazy things. And let me explain to you how crazy the world is. Yesterday, for the first time, I went through active shooter training in our newsroom. What would you do if an active shooter came into our newsroom? That is crazy to think that we're thinking about these things, but that's what I had yesterday at work. At the complete dichotomy, because in the morning they had active shooter training, and in the evening was the holiday party for our station here in D.C. So, and obviously you guys, it hit you hard what happened in Roanoke, Virginia. The whole idea of being a one-man band or a two-man band. Those of us in radio, we have always been one-man band. We've always traveled by ourselves. And I heard the number of people who are like, well, how could they not see someone walking up? And people just don't realize the tunnel we're in when we're either doing a live shot, or if I've got this notepad and I'm looking down and I've got the phone, I literally cannot see 6 inches that way or that way, because you're so zoned in on what you're trying to do. So, that's why Roanoke hits so hard, because we are blind out there. The first couple of hits, I wasn't worried about someone coming up on me or anything like that, after that happened. But what I did come to the realization is just how blind I am when I'm live on the air. Just how tight this zone gets. Whether it's, and I was thinking about when I used to be on TV for Georgia Public Television, how zoned in I got in on what's right in front of me in the camera. So,
right.
These are crazy things that are in our head now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. And we're coming down to the last couple of minutes of our Google Hangout, Raul, and I talked to a student broadcaster yesterday, and they're always wondering, what can we do, or what should we do as far as our health and our mental health? Any other things that you wanted to mention that really stuck out in your life in particular? Because
yeah. First of all, reach out to somebody, okay? And again, whether that's somebody at work, and remember, people at work are easy to reach out to, whether it's someone here at AAJA or any other professional organization, or someone within your family. Just even talking about some of the issues you're dealing with will help. for some ideas on eating. One of the things I do is I always have a little bag of nuts. Nuts and cheese are still going to be better than anything you get at drive-through. And then see if you can eat smaller portions. Let's see, I'm trying to scroll through this list really fast. Try to keep some healthy food with you, whether it's nuts and cheese. Try the diary if you can. In terms of physical health, it's hard when we have. Sometimes, if you're at a story early, go for a walk if you're near a story. I've done that actually. If you're on one of these stakeouts, like some of my friends who are up in Baltimore covering the Freddie Gray thing, hey, I'm going to go for a quick walk around the block if something happens. If you're on like a stakeout story or something like that, try to go for a quick walk. Try to park further away from a story, or those are quick ways to get a little extra exercise in. It is difficult as long as our days are. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about physical health. When it comes to physical health, it really is all about the food. And so if you can do something with your food, that's the best. There's a lot of free help out there. Again, I mentioned that my company, WTOP, has resources. Most of these corporations have great resources when it comes to finances. Some of them have 401ks, helping you with even basic budget planning, because there's a lot of skills we don't get. And then also mental health help. A lot of corporations have access to it. Just ask. HR people, you may learn that the HR person at your company is a great person to talk to. They have privacy rules that they have to keep. They're not like doctor privacy rules, but people, they can get you help to reach out for. And if you want to, just reach out to me. My email is out there. Reach out to Steven, Mega. There's so many people who have gone through big markets, small markets, that can help you out. So ask for help. There's a lot of help out there.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Steven, do you have anything else to add?
I think Rahul just put it into a bow and just said everything I learned a lot. I'm not sure about you, Mecca, but I definitely I feel like you're preaching to me, because I'm going through a lot of those similar things right now, and I'm sure many people who check out this hangout will also take a lot from it. But yeah, very thankful for your words, and I'm sure that I started taking some notes myself about what we can take away as small market broadcasters, because for Meg and I, we're still in that small market bubble, and one-man bands, stranger in a new city type of thing. So it's always it's good to hear that we're not alone, and that we can reach out to people, and people can reach out to us as well.
And I do have to add, I think, in addition to eating and mental health and the things that you talked about, Raul, I think at the end of the day, for me personally, what I've learned, and so I don't backtrack, is I did find that support group, as well as find this sense of like, I am good enough. I need to treat myself with respect, and that starts with my eating habits as well. So I do appreciate your time to share with us, because, yeah, it's hard. Like what Steven said, it's hard. So I do appreciate your time.
Sounds good, guys.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in or who will tune in later on. We will definitely post this, and also Raul, you said to contact you, so we'll have his contact email and all that stuff on our page. Thank you all. Stay with me. I'm going to stop the broadcast, but everyone who's watching and will watch, see you later.